All right, we'll go ahead and kind of start here. And folks, if they join a little late, they'll just kind of miss some of the introduction and we'll catch them up. Thank everybody for joining us today. This is the third advisory committee for the Rockford Part 150 study update. We are getting ready to have our final public meeting tomorrow night to accept public comments on the draft documentation and the study itself. We'll go ahead and do some introductions here. So my name is Jesse Baker. I'm the project manager for Landerman Brown on the Part 150 study update. And I'll go ahead and I'll ask for some people's names here. Alan, you'll go ahead.
Good afternoon, Alan Haas with Landerman Brown. I've been assisting Jesse on the land use mitigation analysis for this study.
Right. Michael.
Yep, Mike Branich with Greater Rockford Airport Authority, Director of Operations and Maintenance.
Thanks, Michael. Let's do Nicholas.
Good afternoon, Nick Williams, Acting Air Traffic Manager at Rockford.
Thanks, Nick. Can we go ahead to John Germain?
John German. I'm the Ground Operations Station Manager for Atlas Air at Rockford.
Thanks, John. Scott. All right, still on mute, Scott, but we will try to come back to you. Mary.
Hey, Mary Barnacle, Public Policy for Amazon Air.
Thanks. Let's see, Troy.
I'm the General Manager, AAR Corporation.
Thanks, Troy. Craig.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Pullins. I'm Environmental Protection Specialist with FAA in Chicago ADO's office.
Thanks, Craig. Bob.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Beauchamp. I'm another Environmental Protection Specialist with the Chicago ADO. Craig and I work together.
Thanks, Bob. Kelly. Kelly appears to still be on mute. We can come back to Kelly. We'll go ahead to Zach.
Zach Oakley, a Deputy Director for the Greater Rockford Airport Authority.
Thanks, Zach. I do have someone that has dialed in, so if that person would like to come off mute and introduce themselves, that'd be great.
Hello, Carl Franzen, Community Development Director for the City of Rockford.
Thanks, Carl. All right. And then Scott, I don't know if you were having issues earlier, but if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Scott Capavilla, Planning and Zoning Manager for the City of Rockford.
Thanks, Scott. And we'll give Kelly one more opportunity here. Kelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
I think she stepped away. She is a staff support specialist at Rockford Tower.
Busy. Understandable. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and jump right in here to some of our information. So here we have just kind of an agenda of some of the topics that we were going to discuss today. First being kind of a broad overview of Part 150 studies themselves, public involvement, what types of options are available throughout the study. Then we'll review the future 2028 noise compatibility program noise contours. We'll also take a look at the 2023 noise contour while we're looking at that. We'll review some basic overview for the elements of a noise compatibility program, and then look at noise abatement measures and land use mitigation measures. Within land use mitigation measures, we have two types really, remedial or corrective, and then preventative. Obviously, corrective, they're trying to correct any noise issues and remediate those. Preventative is where they look to put controls in place that would limit the potential for impacts in the future from incompatible land uses. Last there, we'll look at program management measures, and then we'll finish up with kind of what some of the next steps are. So as I mentioned, we have a Part 150 overview. So really there are two kind of basic elements to a Part 150 study. You have your noise exposure maps, which take into account the noise contours, and 65 dNL being the significant threshold for the FAA in those noise contours. And you look at an existing condition and then a future condition that is forecasted operations 5 years from that existing condition. So in this case, our existing condition is the year 2023, because that is the year we plan to submit the document to the FAA for approval. And our 5-year out year would be 2028. The future conditions, they'll take into account any physical changes to the airfield or operational changes. So in this case, there was an increase in operations and a change in the type of aircraft that are flying at our RFD from the year 2023 to the year 2028. So that's how that noise changes. The second item being the noise compatibility program. So this really recommends different types of measures that will look to reduce or minimize or mitigate any aircraft noise and land use conflicts that are around the airport. And really it does that through 3 methods: noise abatement, land use mitigation, and program management. And as we go through this slide, we'll discuss many of the options that are already implemented at the airport and additional recommendations that are coming through this Part 150 study update for those types of methodologies. So just to kind of give everyone a glimpse of where we're at in the study process, we're really finishing up here. We have published a draft document. We made that available to the public in mid-October for review. That document is located at the Rockford Public Library, Rockford City Hall, and then at the airport itself. So the document is also available online on the public website, so you can download the full document itself or individual chapters of the document, and then additionally some large-scale noise exposure map graphics and flight track maps. So all that information has been made available to the public. We've sent out the public notices through the newspaper about the draft document, about the public hearing. And then I've also sent out quite a few notifications to folks that have participated in the study throughout about the location of the document and its availability for review, as well as the date and times and registration methods for the public hearing tomorrow night. Go ahead and step to the next slide. So as I mentioned, there were several public involvement opportunities. One being is this advisory committee, which is made up of airport officials, FAA officials, folks that work in the air traffic control tower, community groups, and government officials. We also have some informal public workshops. So we've had, to date in this study, we've had 2 public workshops. The first was to discuss the existing and future noise contours and a lot of the input that went into creating those. That second public workshop mainly focused on some of the different types of screening and recommendations that we were looking to make for the Part 150 study in the noise compatibility program. So that kind of brings us to this next round of meetings where we're moving forward and we have those recommendations within the documentation now. And we didn't really receive any pushback from the public or any type of government entity on what was included previously in that meeting. So we've kind of made those more of a formal recommendation now within the document. And then I mentioned a public hearing. So at the end of a Part 150 study, we offer that opportunity to the public to make any type of public comment that they would like, and that comment will then be carried forward into the final documentation, and a final comment will be made to address that. So tomorrow night, when we do have that, the first half of the meeting will be similar to this meeting where we have a presentation, and the second half will be where we open it up to anyone on the call to make any public comments. And we'll also keep that comment period open until the end of November, so around 2 weeks after the meeting. And we'll collect any comments that come in via mail, email, or on the public website. So, and then as I mentioned, we do have a public website. I encourage everybody that's maybe new to the project or just joining in the process, or kind of unsure of what we had talked about at previous meetings. Definitely go check the website out. All of the public workshops and the advisory committee meetings have video recordings on the website. All of the meeting materials are located on the website to download. There's also some really nice fact sheets that we've kind of added lately for the public hearing tomorrow night. So they really have some high level information regarding the recommendations, some of the costs, the areas that we're looking at. So really good material there that could really help catch anyone up. And now, as I mentioned, the draft documents on there. So and it's split up. So if you don't want to read the whole 500-page document and you just want to go to a certain chapter, you can just download that chapter and take a look at it. Before we go any further, did anybody have any questions on kind of the overview of a Part 150 study, where we're at in the study, or some of the public involvement that's been made available and upcoming? Okay. We'll go ahead and move forward here, and we can always go back and address any questions that anybody has later on as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, we do have two sets of noise contours. We have that existing 2023 noise exposure contour, and you'll see that here. That was built with operations, the most recent 12 months of operations that we had when we started the modeling for that noise contour. So it's based on radar data and those operations that were captured with the surveillance equipment there at Rockford. And as you can see, there are some impacts of homes within the 65 DNL contour. So we have a neighborhood that is southwest of the airport there, Woodcrest Estates. And it's got about 14 homes there that are within the 65 DNL of that 2023 noise contour. So approximately 36 people live in those 14 homes. So we take census data, we determine the number of average household size, and then we apply that statistic to come up with that estimated population. So but as you can see, that those are where the impacts are in that 2023 contour. We move on to this is the future 2028 NCP noise contour. So any of the recommendations we make, sound insulation or type mitigation in those regards, the 65 DNL and the future 2028 noise contour will be considered as the implementing contour there for those measures. So we'll always reference back to that 2028 noise contour and not that 2023. So as you go forward, that's the contour you'll see in any type of the graphics. But as you can see, the contour did grow based on the increase in operations and a change in the fleet mix. And you can see that now we have quite a few more homes in Woodcrest Estates, but we've also entered neighborhoods up here to the northeast of the airport. And in those, we have some multifamily units that are located along, I believe that, what is it, Samuelson Road, and as well some single family residential homes. And then we start to get into another neighborhood up here into the northeast. So with that growth in the operations, the contour has grown or projected to grow by 2028 to impact those homes. And you can see compared to the existing, where we had the 14 housing units in 2028, we have 61 housing units that are impacted with an estimated population of 162. And to give us a little bit of a comparison idea of the amount of growth and what those contours look like, this is the 2023 existing compared to that future 2028 noise contour. So acreage wise, there was about a 587.8 acre increase. And then we also had an additional 47 homes with 126 for the population, so for the growth. So, and you can see where the majority of the growth is there to the northeast and the southwest, but there was still additional growth to the north and to the south. To the north, the 65 DNL contour stays within the airport property. To the south, it does extend past the airport property, but it does not get into any residential neighborhoods. It comes close. It's a pretty rural area out there to the south of the airport with some scattered residential homes along the roads down there. All right. So some of the different elements in a noise compatibility program. So first we have noise abatement. The purpose for noise abatement measures is to abate the noise in the surrounding communities. And you can do that by the movement of like the flight track locations. So whatever procedures that are being used to fly in and out of the airport, those might be adjusted. Adjustment of runway use, different types of flight management. Any type of ground activity restrictions, like on ground run-ups, maintenance run-ups, as well as facility modifications. Land use mitigation is the purpose to mitigate noise levels in the surrounding communities. And as I mentioned, there's two types there. We have preventative measures, which really look to prevent any type of new incompatible land uses around the airport or minimize that encroachment from those incompatible land uses. And then remedial and corrective, and that's more of the where there's some type of corrective activity or remedial activity going on, such as sound insulation or an easement program or acquisitions of homes. The last item there is program management. So program management really provides the administrative and management actions that kind of allow the airport to maintain any land use compatibility in the surrounding neighborhoods. It lets them review the noise compatibility program, make sure the measures are being implemented, and also look to kind of update the NEMs and NCP in the future. So the FAA recommends updating these programs every 5 years. So 5 years, we would be out at that 2028 noise contour. So that's kind of their thought process there is once you get past 2028, you really don't know what the noise levels would be. So you kind of want to do a new NEM or NCP. So, but these programs are completely voluntary for the airport. So there's no FAA requirement saying that they have to do a new NEM or NCP once they hit that 5-year date. It's really up to the airport when they conduct that study. A lot of times airports will do it with any type of major infrastructure rehab or development or a master plan. So really those are, when something changes at the airport. And with the operations increasing, the airport knowing that those ops were coming, they chose to go ahead and start that NEM and NCP process. And that's where we're at right now. Okay, so we do have quite a few previously approved noise abatement measures, land use mitigation measures, and program management measures. So right here, I'm going to kind of go quickly through some of the approved noise abatement measures. So, and kind of what the recommendation is that we're making for that measure. So we have measure NA1, and that is to maintain the existing noise abatement procedures per tower order of June 15th, 1984. So as you can see, that's a pretty outdated date there. And essentially that tower order read, and it really pertained to training aircraft. So, and aircraft performing touch and goes and doing those touch and goes to the south and to the west of the airport. So we have modified a noise abatement that's later in the measures there. So what we're recommending to do is go ahead and withdraw that measure just based on the date of the data that it's based on, and wrap the main concept of that into another measure. NA3, all aircraft departing runway 7 should be fanned along 3 departure tracks, the left, right, and center. That is one of the approved voluntary noise abatement measures. It is currently implemented as conditions allow and recommended to be continued. NA4 deals with C-130 traffic, and essentially the C-130 traffic now at the airport compared to where it was in the 90s and mid 80s it's a fraction of the amount. So there's no real need for that measure anymore. So we're going to go ahead and recommend for that measure to be withdrawn as well. NA7 and 12, essentially these are the same noise abatement measure. It just NA7 deals with the daytime hours, while NA12 deals with nighttime hours. And essentially what it has there is for all departures off of runway 25, having departure courses from 250 to 069. So essentially anybody that's turning to the north west, they be directed to the DBQ and ODI navigational fixes. We are recommending to continue that voluntary noise abatement measure with some modifications to make it more in line with current controller instructions. So NA8 and 13 are the same type of concept there. One deals with the daytime, one deals with the nighttime. And this is for aircraft that are turning to the southeast off of runway 25. And it has them making a 20-degree left turn and maintaining that heading until reaching 3,000 feet mean sea level. We are recommending for that voluntary noise abatement measure to also be continued, and the wording of it be modified to be more in line with current controller instructions. NA9 deals with nighttime hours, so all aircraft that are departing runway 19. And this would be for aircraft that are making left turns off that departure. It has you would stay on that, maintain the runway heading until you hit 3,000 feet and then start the turn. We are again recommending that to be continued with modifications to make it similar to controller instructions. NA10 is the establishment of an informal preferential runway use plan for all daytime and nighttime operations after runway 725 is extended. So this was actually brought forth before 725 was extended to its current length. It is approved as a voluntary measure, and it is implemented as conditions allow and recommended to continue. NA 11, so all aircraft requiring more than 8,000 feet, it's recommended that those aircraft depart runway 25, being the longest runway. Again, that is a voluntary noise abatement measure that is implemented as conditions allow, and we'll be recommending that to be continued. NA 14, so that's aircraft that are performing the low approaches and touch and go operations and doing the training activities. So as I mentioned earlier, this is where we're kind of putting all of our touch and go and training activity and having that directed to the south side of the airport when using runway 725. And that is already approved as a voluntary measure. Now we're just making modifications to make that text more broad and encompassing of all aircraft there. NA 15, nighttime hours, all aircraft departing runway 1, maintain that runway heading until reaching 3,000 feet before turning on course. So this is aircraft departing to the north. And really the main purpose there was when it was implemented was to avoid overflights of Black Hawk Island and some residential areas that are directly to the northeast of runway 1 there. That is an approved voluntary measure that is implemented, and we will be recommending that to be continued as well. The last noise abatement measure there, was the NA 16, essentially encouraging the use of noise attenuating construction standards for any on-airport structures or facilities that are proposed to be built, and those would provide any type of noise buffers or any type of reflection there for aircraft and potentially lower noise levels in the adjacent areas. Again, that is approved as voluntary, currently implemented, and recommended to be continued. So in total there, we have 5 measures that we're recommending continue, 6 of measures that we're recommending to continue with modifications, and 2 measures that we're recommending to be withdrawn. So the next slide really shows us how those voluntary noise abatement measures affect the traffic. So you can see in A3, it has the 3 fanned departure corridors there. In A7 and 12 were those right turns off of 25. In A8 and 13 are the left turns off of 25. In A9 are those left turns off of runway 19. And then in A15 were the left turns there off of runway 1. So that's really what the traffic kind of looks like when you implement those types of noise abatement measures and what we're seeing in the radar of how the aircraft are flying. And looking at other potential noise abatement options, it was determined that the currently implemented noise abatement measures, they reduce the noise impacts within the 65 DNL noise contour to the fullest extent possible currently. So there were really no types of noise abatement measures that we could implement that would actually reduce the numbers of impacted homes. A lot of that is due to the locations of those homes being so close to the runway ends. For arrivals and departures, they're really just departing when they're getting over those homes, and on arrivals, they're really just about to land. So not a lot of options there for really being able to move that traffic around and reduce impacts. All right, I know that was quite a bit of information I just laid on you there. So does anybody have any questions about the existing noise abatement measures and any of the recommended modifications to those measures? Go ahead and continue on here. Right. So the next set of measures here are the previously approved land use mitigation measures. So we have an LU2, which is to adopt noise overlay zoning that will help to prevent any type of noise sensitive land uses within certain areas adjacent to the airport. That was approved in the previous Part 150 study. However, to date, no real Ogle County or Winnebago County zoning ordinances have incorporated the noise compatibility program or those contours. There were some references in the Ogle County zoning ordinances that were updated in 2021, but they continue to reference a 1994 NCP contour. So there was a updated NCP since then. So really, we would be delivering information to Ogle County and having them kind of update that information when they go through and update ordinances next to kind of reference the latest NCP in those 2023, 2028 NEMs. LU4 deals with amending local comprehensive plans to include elements of the Part 150 study, language related to that, and continuing to have an active presence in RFD activities is found in the latest Ogle County Comprehensive Plan, but there's nothing really in the Winnebago County Comprehensive Plan for incorporating the RFD NCP or the noise contours to use those as some type of planning aid. LU5 is for adopting guidelines for the discretionary review for development projects in the city of Rockford, Winnebago County, Ogle County, and the GRAA. So that's really something that would be implemented as needed. And it's just really to have an ability to have coordination between those groups when there's any type of big development project that's going to happen near the airport or within one of the noise contours itself that might actually bring new potential impacts within the contours. LU8, this one is fully implemented. So this dealt with the voluntary acquisition of single-family residence on Black Hawk Island. That was, as I said, fully implemented. The homes were purchased, and we would be recommending this this measure to be removed from the NCP. LU9 is the redevelopment of airport-owned land along Kiswaukee Street, south of Research Parkway. This is an approved measure. It's the implementation of it is dependent on any type of future potential development or developers and available funding. So that would, again, be recommended to be continued. LU11 deals with the overflight rights via purchase of a land use and navigation easement. This was for a property to the southwest of the airport, just on the other side of the Rock River there, and that was fully implemented and that easement was accepted. LU12 deals with, this was a purchase of a home that was in the 65 DNL contour south of runway 0119 there. And that home was sold to the airport. So that as well, both LU11 and LU12, we would be looking to recommend to remove from the NCP as they're fully implemented. LU13 deals with encouraging the city of Rockford and Winnebago County to require plat notes on new subdivision plats and to record those notes on deeds for new subdivisions within the airport noise overlay zone. So this would essentially be putting a reference to notify any potential buyers or anything of, that they're close to the airport, they're in one of these airport overlay zones, So really just a way to inform new or potential residents. LU 14 is encouraging Winnebago County, City of Rockford, the Village of New Milford, and Village of Davis Junction to not allow an increase in the residential density in the agricultural priority or rural residential zoning districts. And essentially it'd be those districts that are within that 2028 60 plus DNL noise contour. To date, based on zoning ordinances that we've seen compared to the ones done when the previous NCP was published, the allowable residential densities allowed in these zones have been increased. It's a very slight increase, but the rural residential and AG zones do have an increase in the number of allowable persons per acre there. So that's just something that we would also pass along to those entities, and that information will be provided to them to make their best choice on whether to increase or keep those allowable densities the same. Some of the noise overlay zones. So the first overlay zone is essentially everything outside of the 65 DNL contour. So the 60 to 65 and not on airport property. So in those areas, it would be recommended that the land use restrictions, there be restrictions for mobile homes and hospitals, nursing homes, any type of outdoor music facility or amphitheater, and outdoor resorts, or any type of boys camp, girls camps, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, that those types of camps. So within that 60 DNL contour, 60 to 65, you can see we've shaded everything in a pink color to show where those areas are. So those would be the type of restrictions that the airport would recommend to any type of planning agencies. And this information, again, that'll be conveyed to each one of the counties and the cities surrounding the airport. Zone AC2 deals with areas within that 65 DNL contour and off airport property. So in these areas, there would be recommendations for restrictions on things like single family and multifamily residential, any type of educational services, so essentially schools and colleges, universities, any medical facilities or cultural activities, auditoriums, concert halls. So really trying to limit that, the potential for any type of noise sensitive institution to be developed within that 65 DNL contour. The last and most restrictive area is a zone that is just right off the runway ends. And in here, this would have the same restrictions as AC2, but would also include things like libraries, museums, art galleries, any type of sports and amusement parks. But you can see that those areas are quite close to the runways, and most of those areas are currently on airport property. Right, we'll go ahead and take a break there. Did anyone have any question about the land use mitigation measures that are currently in the NCP? Okay. All right, so we have new recommended land use mitigation measures as well that we've proposed. We actually have two corrective and remedial land use mitigation measures, and then we have two preventative land use mitigation measures. Just some quick highlights here. So the first one being offering a residential sound insulation program, reducing the impacted homes within the 65 DNL. Once those homes are treated, they will no longer be considered incompatible. And this has that ability to reduce the number of homes within the 65 DNL. So we are recommended that for inclusion, as well as an accompanying abrogation easement program for owners of owner-occupied single and multifamily homes within our mitigation areas. Again, that would have the potential to, instead of the home being considered incompatible, it would then be compatible and no longer considered as impacted. Preventative, we have adopting improved building codes. So just looking at the current materials that are being used for construction in the area, and look at if there's any types of ways to improve that material to help reduce those interior sound levels. As well as here, developing a voluntary fair disclosure program for resale properties. So this would be looking to get the cooperation of local realty groups that would be able to help provide information to any prospective buyers about any type of aircraft noise that would be impacting the home that they're looking to buy. And we've recommended that for inclusion as well. And the next slide just kind of gives us the breakdown there of the two new corrective or remedial land use mitigation measures, first being the sound insulation program. And we've developed some boundaries that Alan will tell us about here shortly called noise mitigation program areas. It's important to note, though, that not all properties within these boundaries will meet the eligibility requirements for sound insulation, and that's essentially based on the year that those homes were built, as well as interior sound level reduction tests that are performed during that sound insulation program. And then last there, offering of abrogation easements to any of the owner-occupied single and multifamily homes that are within NMPA 1. So that's that noise mitigation program area, and that's the number one area. So our number one has two areas, and it's essentially that area that's within the 65 DNL. So any homes that are not within the 65 DNL, but they are still within some of our NMPAs, they would not be offered the abrogation easements. It would only be the homes within the 65 DNL. Right, and I'll go ahead now and turn this over to Alan to discuss the NMPAs and the homes and the ultimate cost there that we've kind of projected.
Great, thank you, Jesse. As Jesse's been talking about, a lot of the measures have already been implemented in terms of noise abatement alternatives. It's been in place for a while. There's a little tweaking of some of the measures there, but the real meat of this noise compatibility program is going to be a residential sound insulation program. That's going to be the one measure that's going to really help the residents that are out there now in the community. So as Jesse briefly talked about, we had recommended a residential sound insulation program, and a little more detail on that. The program right now we've defined as the noise mitigation program area number one, and that's the kind of purple area you see on the approach to 07 and also on 25. Those are the homes that are within the 65 DNL and are impacted by aircraft noise. There is 30 units located in the subdivision on the approach to 07, and there are follow-up 11 single-family units and 20 multifamily units on the approach to 25. So we zoom in a little bit on that on the next slide. On the 07 approach is that's the Woodcrest Estate subdivision. So those are the 30 single-family homes that are impacted by noise. Some of those look like they're outside of the noise contour, but the majority of the property, or it's touching the building itself, they are included. All of the green dots there, those are the 30 that we're recommending for sound insulation there. If we go up to the 2.5 approach, there's the remaining 11 units, single-family units, and 20 multifamily units. A few of them on Samuelson Road. Some are in the Valley Pines subdivision, and the remaining ones are in the Monarch Acres subdivision up to the north. However, FA guidelines, the AIP handbook allows us to look into block rounding to kind of round out where subdivisions or streets don't have a logical breakpoint. So we took a look at where we thought additional housing should be included in the mitigation program. And as you'll see, there's some 3 little purple areas up on the approach to 2.5 and another area on the approach to the 07. These areas add an additional 51 single-family units and 36 multifamily units. And zoom in on that. On the approach to 07, we have an additional 20 single-family homes, which basically includes all of the Woodcrest Estates subdivision. We have logical breakpoints there with the Kishwaukee Road and the river and a lot of open area. So it was a very, very easy kind of area to kind of include that area in for block rounding. If we move up to the northeast, it gets a little more complicated. Our NMPA, call it 2B, the areas on Samuelson Road that are highlighted in blue, there's an additional 4 single-family homes which are included for block rounding. Nice logical inclusion there. The NMPA 2C is the subdivision on Revelation Lane and Valley Pines Drive. That's the remaining multifamily units there. They're 2-family units. So those are included in the block rounding area. And then up to the north, that last area on Monarch Acres subdivision, it's a combination of the streets, Radnor, Chesterfield, Wellington, one on 20th Street, which rounds out that that whole subdivision and included in the block rounding area. As Jesse mentioned, all of these homes are subject to FA review and approval. We did have some preliminary discussions with the Great Lakes region to kind of fine tune those block rounding areas. So subject to the final Part 150 approval, those are the number of homes. So what are we looking at cost? We got a total of 61 units within the noise contours, the NMPA 1A and B, additional 87 units in NMPA 2A through 2D. These aren't big homes. From previous experience of working on these programs, we estimate about $50,000 a house to actually do the construction to sound insulate them. An additional $12,500 per house for soft costs, the architects, the program managers, the acoustical testing, everything that goes on. So total of $62,500 per house, a little over $9.25 million we estimate for, sorry about that, estimate construction. 80% paid by the FAA and grants, 20% local share. And the split down of the different areas is included below that. So that's it with that. We talk about the remaining improving building codes and the fair disclosure Jesse talked about. Really minimal costs, some administrative costs there. Basically getting the word out to various cities and counties about improving the building codes and developing flyers, getting those out to realtors and that. So about $25,000 in cost there. Again, 80/20 on the building codes. 25,000 would be paid for by the airport on the fair disclosure. Questions on that?
Yep. All right. Thanks, Alan. Did anybody have any questions on the sound insulation program, the noise mitigation program areas, cost, or as well any of the two preventative measures, the building construction materials and the real estate awareness program?
It's like we have
This is
one.
Mike with the
Right.
airport. I was just curious about the typical phase-ins or phases with projects of this scope. Is this typically done, 1 or 2 years, or are we looking at a 10-year process for something? I guess what's been your past practice or past experience in that?
Well, a lot depends on the amount of the grants, obviously. If it was possible to get a $10 million grant, in theory, all the homes could be surveyed, bid out, and under construction in probably the course of a year or two. If federal grants are slower in coming, then that program would be dragged out for a number of years. So it's going to all come down to funding.
Thank you.
I might add, 148 total units is not a big program. Some of those are probably going to fall out because of the eligibility requirements based on interior noise levels, age of construction. Maybe we're going to find some code violations that don't allow us to go into the building. Some people aren't just not going to want to participate. So that 148 is probably going to be less. I'm not going to try and throw out a number, but typically there'll be some people in each of those categories that don't qualify for one reason or another, or don't want to participate. So the $9.25 million is probably a high end number. In reality, it's probably going to be a little bit less.
Yeah, and I think one thing be important there is that even those folks that are within that 65 DNL contour, if they choose to not participate in the sound insulation or their interior noise levels, they kind of test out and aren't eligible. It'd be those individuals that if they own and live in their home, that the abrogation easements would also be offered to. So, and that being the easement is significantly less in cost than the insulation of one of the homes. So, I think what number is it about? Is it like 6,000 per home, somewhere in there on average for a navigation easement?
I think we found no more than 3,000.
No more than 3. So as you can see, 3,000 compared to the 62 per home, big difference there. So really a lot of that program is very dependent, like Alan said, on the number of homes that choose to participate. And then even on those that choose to participate, how many of them actually pass the interior noise test. So and then I think we've also done some preliminary looks, and there might be a house or two in there that are past the build date restrictions for the FA. So I don't, but most of the homes though are within the build dates. So so yeah, that number is very fluid. But that was like, I think we developed that number based on 100% of the homes participating in the sound insulation program, getting you to the $9.2 million. So, all right, we'll go ahead and move forward here. Go. All right, program management. Alan, were you going to discuss the program management? I didn't know if my slide updated or not. My button wasn't even working.
Yeah, sure. So once we talk about noise abatement and land use mitigation measures, there's program management measures, and those are really just designed to kind of monitor the progress of the program moving forward. There's been a number of programs here that have already been recommended from previous Part 150 studies. 5 are recommended for continuation, 1 with a slight modification. Basically monitoring compliance, monitoring compliance with noise abatement measures. That's was already approved previously. It's implemented. Just wanted to continue. Noise complaint response system. We want something probably a little more formal. That's why we're recommending it to be continued with modifications. More formal system set up to monitor noise complaints, log them, and respond to them, which information will be very useful moving forward when it's time to update the Part 150 again. OM3, periodically measure noise compatibility program, and looking at any revisions and refinements we can do moving forward. Pretty standard measure that we usually recommend. Establish a pilot community awareness program. That's also been approved, has not been implemented yet. Something we think would be helpful moving forward. OM5, publication of instrument departure procedures for runways 1, 19, and 25. Again, that's not implemented, but we recommended that should be continued. And then updating all the new airport information in the airport facilities directory, that should be continued. Really, most of these are minimal cost, except when it comes time to update the Part 150 study again, either just the noise exposure maps or the complete noise compatibility program. So the cost can vary, under $400,000 for just the NEM updates moving forward, or up to $750,000 for a full Part 150 study update in the future.
All right. Did anyone have any questions on any of the program management measures and any of the recommended changes there, particularly the noise complaint process? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and finish up here. We have our kind of the next steps. So really the next steps in this process is we're looking to gather any type of community input on any of the recommended measures, the noise abatement, land use mitigation, and program management measures. That's why we're here today, to gather any input we can get from the advisory committee. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking to, solicit information and gather input from the public on their thoughts for any of the recommendations. Also gathering input from the Greater Rockford Airport Authority itself. And anything from ATC and the FAA, any type of recommendations or input we get from them. And then finally, they're looking to get some GRAA acceptance on the NCP recommendations before we move forward with submitting to the FAA for approval. After that comment period has ended at the end of November, we will look to submit the official NEMs and NCP for review and approval by the FAA. And then during that period of the FAA review and approval, we'll provide any coordination we can to the FAA on the document itself and any of the recommendations that were made. Right. And that's really all we have today. I do have one additional slide though. This kind of relates to the public comments. So even if you're not going to be on the meeting tomorrow, you might still want to make some type of public comment and have that published on the record in the documentation. And like I said, you have until November 30th to make any comments. And we have the three options there. So the study website, there is a contact page. You can email me personally or snail mail me any type of typed out written comment that you have. And you can mail that directly to me. We just ask that, those be delivered by November 30th or, a day or so of that. So if it's close, we're not going to shut the doors at 6 p.m. on November 30th. So if it comes in the next day, it'll still make the document. So that's kind of the three methods that if you're not going to be at the public hearing and you still want to make some type of comment or any type of statement on the record, that is the way to do that. All right. Does anyone have any final questions? Okay. Well, I really do hope a couple of you can join tomorrow night. It will be a lot of the same information, so understandably, if you've got something that else you need to attend to, but definitely, if you have constituents or people that you think might be interested, pass on information. And if they need information on how to register for that meeting or where the website is, shoot them my email. The website, though, has a registration process for that public hearing tomorrow night. So that's really the best way to interact and get signed up for the meeting itself. But yeah, definitely pass on any information that you guys have to anybody that's wanting to learn a little bit more about this. And I really do thank you for any of your help throughout this process. And hopefully we have a successful public hearing tomorrow night and a successful workshop as well. And hopefully, everybody is able to get the information they need tomorrow night. With that, I'll go ahead and release everybody back to their day. And again, thanks for your participation.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.